Welcome back to the Life of a Gentleman podcast. Here is where the guys discuss, debate, and consider all aspects of living like a true gentleman. Rich and Anton will consider entrepreneurship, success, fashion and styling, family life, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our latest saunter into the life of a gentleman. Guys, take it away.
How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to the Life of the Gentleman podcast. And in this episode, we're going to talk about something that for many was a little bit sobering, for others sad, and for some, and I would like to say a small majority, even a joyous time. What we're going to talk about is the life and the very short legacy of Kevin Samuels. For many, he changed their lives. For others, he dropped gems and all kinds of things that you were able to build from or to work with or to use in your everyday life. And for others, he was a very polarizing figure. So this week, we're just going to discuss his legacy and for the short time that he was in most of our lives, how he affected our thoughts and our ideas when it came to a number of different things. Rich, I'm going to toss it over to you. Tell me, where you are when it comes to Kev Samuels and what he meant to the culture or, dating and life and, being a man, all those kind of good things.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it just shows us all how short life can be. 1 minute you can be quote unquote on top of the world and the next minute you're gone. But as far as his legacy is concerned, I will always admire his work ethic. Like him, love him or hate him, the man put in work. The man did lives. The man was a one-man engineering crew. He had camera angles. He had great quality. I admired him for always trying to make his presentations as professional as possible.
Right.
And so you can't take that away from him no matter what.
No, I agree.
As far as some of his message, like you said, the word is polarizing.
Right.
There were guys out there that championed him and loved him. And there were women out there that absolutely hated him. And some sadly even celebrated his death, which is despicable to celebrate anybody's death.
And not to cut you off, there were some guys as well who celebrated his death.
There were.
I think they were. And let's be fair, I don't believe that most women celebrated his death. I don't.
No, not most. It was a small group. It was a small group. They're just loud.
Yeah, what do we call it? The vocal minority.
Yeah, vocal minority, exactly. So when you think about it like that, what always kind of makes me chuckle, and I know a few people that are, Kevin disciples, and the thing that always makes me laugh, and it's the fact that people hear what they wanted to hear. They took bits and pieces, not just sound bites, but even if you listen to a full broadcast, people would take bits and pieces, apply it to their lives, but at the same time, leave out some of the other messages that he put out there. It's like it fell on deaf ears or went one ear and out the other. And that's the part of it that kind of is puzzling to me, how somebody can have such a clear message. His message was clear. It wasn't hard to understand, but people would just take bits and pieces and run with what made them feel comfortable. And I don't know. I think we'll be talking about him even 10 years from now. I think he'll still be brought up. I think he really did make a big impact.
No, and especially the fact that he passed so suddenly, right? There wasn't I want to say that he may have had at least an upload the day before he passed. Like maybe the day before or 2 days before he passed, he had uploads. And what was crazy was, I was on with a client at the time, doing a consultation. And as I'm on with the client, you texted me, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, I think Kev Sam died. And I'm just like, yeah, right. I literally probably heard something or saw an upload from him the day before. And like you said in the outset, it shows you how fleeting life can be. And if there aren't things that you have, if there's things you haven't done or people you haven't said things to or things that you need to kind of clear up with people, clear them up, do them, because you just don't know. This guy literally was hitting his stride when it came to his pop, whether you hated him or loved him. You know what I'm saying? Like whether you hated him or loved him, he was really just like in his stride. Even I don't really know how old he was. What was he, like 50?
I think 51? It was 56.
Okay.
56.
However old he was, in his 50s, right? So he had just really hit his style because, as we know, he had been uploading videos to YouTube for years.
Yeah, I think over a decade, probably.
Years.
If you go back.
And I've seen some of his old videos. He doesn't even look like the same person. Like, he didn't look like the same person. His message was a little different. He was talking about different things and blah, blah, blah. And then you got to understand some of the minutia behind the game. Like, once he kind of found his niche, right, you start gaining some traction. You start to get some clicks. You're starting to get those comments. Well, then that's kind of the pocket that, you know, you have to stay in. And I'm not saying that he didn't believe in that message, because I believe that he did. But you also got to understand the game as well, you know, when it comes to content creation. But I do believe that he genuinely believed what he did about the importance of like a nuclear family. And I know that may not be as popular as it was some time ago, but having, you know, a mother and father. And I guess depending on how long we talk about this, I'll tell you where I kind of disagree with some of the things that he said, but I never hated the message. And what I will say, and then I'll just stop talking for a second, is I may not have agreed with some of the delivery methods. You know, I may not agree with some of the delivery methods, but the message to me was, for the most part, solid.
Yeah, I can agree with that. 100%. I can agree with that. It's just funny though. A lot of times he talked about, especially for guys, to be the best version of themselves.
Right.
You know, physically, you know, with your employment or your entrepreneurial
mentally,
aspirations,
right?
Mentally,
taking care of therapy if you needed it.
Yeah, your mental health. You know, financial literacy. He was big on all those kind of things. But you still have that small segment of guys that the only thing they remember is some of these women out here aren't a 6 or above. You know, they want to just sit back and just watch a whole show of him ranking women and asking people what's their dress size, and it created a divide in that way, because it wasn't no longer uniting people. It was just pushing people apart, which that's the part I hated about it. Everybody totally ignored the self-improvement aspect of it,
right,
and just focused strictly on degrading other people and putting other people down to make yourself feel better. And that totally defeated his whole message. And I think because those clips got shared more and more,
yes,
and those were the sound bites and the things that people latched onto, that's what his legacy became, which is sad, because at the core, he had a great message. Be the best man you could be. Be the best father you could be. Be the best provider. Be the best husband you could be. Get in shape. Take care of your mental health. Nothing wrong with any of those things.
Right.
But I don't think he's going to be remembered for any of that, being part of his message.
I remember he would say sometime that he spoke to men for, I can't remember how many years it was, Rich, but he said for X amount of this time, or a year or two, he just was talking to men, and his message was really concentrating on men. And you know, and everybody can go back and find these videos, you know, but those aren't the ones that really resonated with the general populace, right? Because I guess at that point, being on YouTube, YouTube is historically a male-dominated platform, right? So if it's a man talking about men, it may not, you know, if it's critiquing, it may not resonate as well. But when he began to critique the relationships between men and women and the value that men place in society, well, probably a lot more men kind of, you know, gravitated toward that message. They kind of, you know, were able to latch on to that message. And I think that's what kind of started to get his popularity. And then, like, you know, you see this guy sharing it and that guy sharing it. And then once some of the girls, you know, heard about it, they're like, girl, did you hear what he said to, you know, about this woman and to this woman? It was one viral video that I saw where I think it was the first time I ever saw one of his videos, and he had kind of rated a female. And I was just like, Dang. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me jump in, man. You
Yeah.
know, one thing about those ratings that I'll admit I always hated is you couldn't win. You could be the most beautiful woman,
Yeah.
very attractive women would call in, and he had the whole game rigged when he said you can't choose 7.
Yeah.
There's some people out there, they are a 7.
Yeah. And that's a modest person's rating of themselves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And here's the thing. So you can't choose 7, and so they would say, okay, well, they're either gonna say 8 or 6. So
Yeah.
if you said you were an 8, and then he'd say,
What were you in the room with Sweetie and Beyonce? Like something.
Beyonce's an 8.
Yeah.
Beyonce's an 8. So if Beyonce's an 8, then he'd say, so you go in a room with Beyonce, we put you in a room, 50% of men choose Beyonce, 50% choose you. All right, okay, I'm not an 8, I'm a 6.
Right.
So it was, the game was rigged. That's the only thing. But I thought it was really clever how he did that.
Yeah.
It was impossible for anybody to really beat his system.
Right.
But it made for entertainment.
Yeah, and I agree. I believe that the goalpost kept pushing, and it was like
Beyonce's an 8. I want to see the 9. I don't want to see the 10.
Yeah, like and right. So like I did feel that it was a little rough. Like it really was. Like it was rough. But
Right.
and I think I understand what I think his goal was. I think he tried to get some women, not all, right? Because I believe that there are a ton of women, even though they may not be what's classically termed as beautiful, they have beautiful dispositions, beautiful personalities. They're good mothers, good people, good citizens, all those things, right? And then you have women who are all those things, plus they look good. But what he was talking to were, I believe, and I could be, the man's not here anymore. But what I believe he was talking to the women who had, and there are some men who do the same thing. So I'm trying to be real careful with this. Right? I'm not trying to, upset anyone.
The views expressed are of Anton Cates and not Harrison Blake Apparel.
But I believe he was talking to people who had overinflated ideas of themselves, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be their looks, their marketplace value, as he would say, because you had certain encumbrances or certain age. And, certain people under any rules can be anomalies, right? You could be, as a man, 5'4", 375 pounds, and you could marry a supermodel. You could.
Yeah.
Is that, by and large, the truth or the rule? No, but it doesn't, but it could happen to you.
Could happen.
It could happen. The likelihood's not that high, but it could happen. And I think what he was trying to do was help people, and in those cases, females or women, to be realistic about their position in society, in dating, in the marketplace, I think. But it was a little rough. It was a little rough.
Yeah, it was. But no, just to kind of wrap this up, I'd like to get your thoughts on what do you think he'll be remembered for the work that he did. He did do a lot of matchmaking. He did bring a lot of couples together. He had testimonials.
He did.
He did help a lot of young men really step up and get a little bit more serious and a little bit more maturity into their life.
Right.
He did encourage mental health. He was a champion of mental health.
Yep.
And going to therapy, especially in our community, which is huge.
Especially in our community.
Will he be remembered for that, or will he be remembered for average at best soundbite videos? I'll let you have the final word.
Yeah, I think we both know the answer to this, right? I think he's going to be remembered for his polarizing opinion of women. I think that's what he's going to be remembered by, whether fair or unfair. And I think he could be scrutinized fairly, because I understand why a lot of people did bristle up and they felt a certain way, about how he approached a lot of topics. But I think that he really did at its core, and that's what's difficult for us to, as humans, is once a message becomes unpalatable, then the message kind of gets lost in everything else. You know what I'm saying? So I think what's going to be lost is that I think, and I could be wrong, and I, we'll open up to everybody. Tell me what you think. I think his message at its core made sense, but I think part of it was how he felt. He may have had his own type of ideas and life experiences that kind of shaped how he thought about relationships and women and all kinds of things. So I believe that could be a factor too. But I think he will be, unfortunately, remembered for being a polarizing figure, especially within our community.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us on this episode of the Life of a Gentleman podcast. Stay tuned for episodes every week. And don't forget about our Unstitched, where we debate something that has to do with men's fashion, style, or the gentleman's lifestyle in general. Thanks again.